Hello everybody, this is Monty with Flowers by the Bunch. Today I need to make a birthday arrangement in a glass vase. This is a square glass vase we got from our wholesaler, and I thought this would be a pretty container to be able to make this arrangement in. It is filled with fresh water and fresh flower food. Now that flower food is not only going to feed these flowers, but it also helps to keep the bacteria from growing in the water. It is a great thing to add to your water. If you do not have fresh flower food at home, you can very easily make that. You can use a little bit of lemon juice, a little bit of table sugar, like white table sugar, and a drop of bleach. What that's going to do is the lemon juice helps the flowers to drink that water. The bleach keeps the bacteria from growing in the water, and the sugar is what feeds the flowers. Now, if you have a little bit of Sprite, you don't have to put the lemon juice or the sugar. Sprite, be sure it's not sugar-free because it's the sugar that they like. Add a little bit of clear Sprite or a lemon lime soda that is not sugar-free, and that's going to feed your flowers also. I'm going to start out with this container. I'm going to add a little bit of foliage to my container, and the foliage I've chosen today is Weeping Portocorpus. Now, the thing I like about this stuff is, look, that is one stem of Weeping Portocorpus. I'm going to take that stem using my floral knife. I am going to cut it at an angle, remove any of the foliage that's falling, that might fall below that water line, and I'm going to drop that right down into that vase. Now I'm going to go ahead and strip some of this foliage. I'm going to lay it to the side. It's always good not to throw away things. If you can reuse it, please do. So I'm going to lay this to the side, and we'll use it in more of a bubble bowl or a small container. I just hate to throw good stuff away, so I'm going to set that to the side. Taking my floral knife, I'm going to cut that greenery at an angle, and I am going to tuck it right into my container. I'm going to use one more piece and tucking it right in. Okay, so there's a little bit of greenery. It's going to give us a little bit of a form to this arrangement, and it kind of gives me a grid. This is a pretty wide mouth on this container. I would say it's probably 4 or 5 inches square, so it's pretty wide. And I have found that wide mouth containers are not always the easiest containers to design in. This is called a unicorn hydrangea. A unicorn hydrangea is a dyed hydrangea. It's not actually a natural hydrangea, but the thing I love about this is that you can't really tell it's dyed. Now, there are some hydrangeas that you get and they're dyed and they're very artificial looking. I don't love that. I want it to look real. I want it to look natural. And so I don't love an artificial looking fresh flower. But this one really almost looks like an antique hydrangea, and it's just so pretty, I think. So I'm using my hydrangeas at the base of this arrangement. I put one toward the front, one towards the back. So I'm going to turn it so you can kind of see. So it kind of looks exactly the same on both sides. For my line flower, I am going to use some blue delphinium. The funny thing about the color blue is there are not many flowers that actually come a true blue color. Delphinium, hydrangeas, there is a blue thistle, which is kind of a fun filler flower. And those are about the only true blue flowers there are. Now, there are things that we call blue that are really not blue, like a blue iris, which is really a purple. But this delphinium is a true royal blue. It also comes in a baby blue. Delphinium's just so pretty, I think. So I tucked my 3 stems of delphinium into my arrangement. Now, when using when using line flower, I like to work in odd numbers. And let me tell you the reason. I don't want it to look like antenna. Like a bug has antenna, and you don't want two little straight stems sticking up out of the top of that arrangement. So I like to work in odd numbers. I find visually it just is better. It just looks better. Next, I'm going to come in with this beautiful fuchsia colored stock. We use stock a lot here in our flower shop. It smells so lovely, and it's just a really pretty flower in my opinion. So I am going to take 3 stems of this fuchsia colored stock, and I'm going to tuck it in. Now, stock comes in lots of colors. It comes in this pretty fuchsia. It comes in a mauve color. It comes in purples, several shades of purple. It comes in a light yellow, but I just love that this is so vibrant and pretty. The next flower I am going to use are going to be these yellow button mums. Button mums actually are named buttons because they kind of look like the buttons on a shirt. I love a chrysanthemum. I like the different varieties of chrysanthemums. I like that they last so long. I like a chrysanthemum. So a button mum is kind of like that stock. It comes in lots of colors. Yellow, green, white, purples, just lots of pretty colors. So I'm actually going to use an even number of these chrysanthemums. I'm going to use 4 stems of these little button mums. And I'm just stripping down any of the foliage. Number 1, if it looks bad, pull it right off. Or if you think the foliage might fall below that water line, go ahead and pull that off. Now, the reason we try to keep the foliage out of our water is because the foliage can cause bacteria to grow in that water. So I always suggest to be sure to remove any foliage that might fall below the line. Next, I'm going to come in with some Gerbera daisies. Now, Gerbera daisies are fun flowers. They come in lots of beautiful colors. They're so vibrant and so happy. And that's what I really love about a Gerbera daisy. Now, I am going to actually take this stem and I'm going to wire it. So this is a little disc on the back of the daisy. I'm going to take a piece of wire. I'm going to press it into that little disc, not too hard because I don't want it coming out the top. And then I'm just going to twist that wire right around that stem. Now, there are some designers that will try to run the wire right down into the center of the stem so you can't see the wire, which is fine. The problem I have with that is it's time consuming. And time is money. So you don't want to take too much time in doing something as simple as wiring a flower. Now, these flowers actually, when they're delivered to us or shipped in a box, they come in, I'm going to wire this one real quick, they come in with a little net over their head. So very carefully I will remove that net, and then I will take my hand and very softly press those petals down to try to open that bloom up, just like that. They also are delivered to us with this straw. This is a dark green straw, and what that's doing is helping keep that little stem straight. Now you can see he's bending just a little. He's kind of looking at you. I'm going to take this wire and I am going to tuck it right into the base of that flower and wire it so that I can manipulate the flower just a little bit. Okay, so after I have wired these little Gerbera daisies, I'm going to take them, and my thoughts are they're going to be our focal flower. So our focal flower means they're the first flower that's going to catch your eye. Of course, this hydrangea is certainly going to catch your eye, but a Gerbera daisy is called a focal flower. I'm going to take that stem, cut it at an angle, and I am going to tuck him right there in the front. Now, when looking at Gerbera daisies, you can tell they come in different sizes. So I want the larger bloom closer to the bottom of the vase, and the smaller bloom can go up in the arrangement. That is called visual weight. And so your smaller bloom should be higher in the arrangement than your larger bloom. So I'm going to place my bloom there. So I'm kind of measuring up against my vase. I want my bloom to be roughly right in here. So I'm going to take a little bit, about 2 inches off that stem, and I'm going to tuck it right into that arrangement. Now let me tell you, when cutting your flowers, always cut less than you think you should. The reason is because you can't put your stem back on the arrangement. You can always cut more off, but you can't add any to it. So it's important that you don't cut it too short, or it's just not going to be as pretty in the arrangement as you'd like. So I used 3 stems of Gerbera daisies, and let me tell you the reasoning behind at least an odd number in focal flowers. You never want it to look like a bug looking back at you. If you put 2 of those large round flowers side by side, it's going to look like eyes looking back at you. It's always important that you stand back from your arrangement and make sure it's not a little bug looking at you, okay? I know that probably sounds silly, but very often when I am flipping through the internet looking at arrangements, the first thing I see if flowers are side by side is those little eyes looking back at me. And so I want you to think about that the next time you're making a beautiful flower arrangement. The next flower I have chosen are these really pretty orange tulips. And so tulips are their happiest in the winter. And so when you, if you can ever get your hands on some pretty tulips, winter time is their happy time. Cold weather is their happiest temperature. I'm going to take some of these tulips and I am going to tuck those right down into this arrangement. Always remember, when cutting your tulips, tulips continue to grow. And so it's okay if you cut them a little short and tuck them in that arrangement, because it's going to continue to elongate. The stems are going to get longer and longer as they sit in that water. So if you leave them too terribly long, they're going to wind up just kind of almost falling out of the vase with their length. So I just tucked, I had 5 stems of tulips, so I just tucked them here and there in this arrangement. 1, 2, 3 back, 1 back here, and then 2 on this side. They kind of complement the color of the Gerberas, which I really like that. I like that they kind of complement, and tulips are fun. So I tucked those guys in. The next flower, and the last flower we're going to use in this arrangement, are these beautiful star dust roses. They're a beautiful yellow rose. This variety is really fun. It's a pretty variety. I like this color of yellow, and it's got a little lacy petal, which is even, very pretty. So I'm going to take my little wire and I'm going to wire these roses. There's a swollen part right up under, a swollen part of the stem right up under the bloom. It's called the calyx of the rose, and I'm going to press that wire just a little bit into that calyx, and I'm wrapping that stem right around, that wire right around that stem. Now, here at our flower shop, we like to wire our roses. Not all flower shops do that. It's not completely necessary. If you don't want to wire your roses, you do not have to. I just like the fact that wire guarantees that these roses aren't going to dip their little heads. And so it guarantees to keep their little heads straight up, even if they don't get enough water. It just makes them last longer. A lot of times, roses, their little heads are heavy. They're heavy on this stem, so sometimes their little heads will cause, the weight of that head will cause that stem to dip, especially if it's not well hydrated. So I just wired each of those stems. And I am going to tuck these yellow roses into this arrangement. Using my floral knife, I'm cutting that stem at an angle. If it's a graveside, Jason, yes, you can definitely do a spray. Because they're burying it, it would be something that they could have. If they're only doing a memorial service, then you wouldn't do a spray. So I'm taking my floral knife and I'm removing any of the thorns that are on these roses. And the reason is because they bite. It's not really going to make them last longer in the arrangement. It's just strictly because they bite me. It's the reason I remove any of the thorns. So I just take my floral knife and just run it right down that stem and remove any of those thorns that might bite. The last thing I'm going to do is add a little bit more foliage and some filler flower. Now, I am a huge fan of Solidago. Solidago is in the aster family, and it lasts a long time, and it's very easy to use. We also get it for such a great price that I feel like having a little, I can put a little bit of filler in every arrangement and not feel like it has blown my budget. So I'm just taking a few stems of this Solidago and I'm placing it here and there in this arrangement. Now, if you find that some of your flowers are not in the right place, once you've looked at it, just pull those right out and reposition those in that arrangement. It's completely okay. You can't hurt them. The only time I suggest not moving the flowers too much is when you use fresh floral foam. I always suggest to try to, when you're using floral foam, to place that flower right where it needs to go, because what you wind up doing in floral foam is tearing up that foam. Okay, I've got my Solidago aster in place. The last thing we're going to do is add a little bit more foliage to this arrangement. So this that I'm using here is called Myrtle. Myrtle is, it's just a foliage that we get. I like it because it adds height to the arrangement and makes it taller and showier. Okay, and then I'm going to add just a touch of this green dragon. Green dragon is also a foliage, but it reminds me a lot of a filler flower. It just kind of gives us a little bit of fullness in this arrangement, and it's just darn pretty. It makes me happy, and so that's why I really like green dragon. Now this arrangement is for a birthday. So I am going to add a fun birthday bow to this arrangement. I don't find it necessary to add a bow to every arrangement that I make. Now, I really think that bows are certainly a preference. And if you like a bow on your arrangement, please add bows to your arrangements. They're fun, they're pretty. You can always add a pretty bow. But for this one, this is for a birthday. So I think we're gonna add a fun birthday bow. So I chose some fun birthday colors that matched my arrangement. This arrangement has royal blue from the delphinium. So I'm gonna put a couple of loops, actually 3 loops of this pretty royal blue gingham check. It also has red Gerbera daisies, so we're going to put a couple of loops of our red. Now all of this ribbon I'm using is a wired ribbon. You don't have to use wired ribbon, you can use any ribbon you'd like. So there's my red. And then lastly, I'm gonna add some yellow because we have the yellow Solidago and the yellow button daisies. So this is just a fun celebration type ribbon. And I just layer those ribbons one on top of the other. Next, I'm going to take a half of a piece of florist wire. So our florist wire comes in different gauges. This is 21 gauge. It's my favorite. It's the gauge that I use the most of, and I use it to wire all the flowers you saw me wire and to tie off bows. I'm going to take that wire and I'm going to twist it tight to tie that bow, and then I'm going to fluff my ribbon. So when you're fluffing your bow, be sure to hold your thumb on the wire where you've tied it, because if you pull it too much, you may pull your bow loose. Okay, there's my bow. Now, you can use a Koei wood pick, which is just about a 6-inch pick with a little piece of wire on it. Now, the only thing is those cost money. So if you don't have them, here's the trick. This is a part of the stem of that Solidago. I'm going to take this stem, and this is my piece of wire. I am just going to wrap that wire tightly around that stem. Now, this stem is not going to hurt this flower arrangement at all. It already has plenty of stems in there. I'm going to pop that stem to shorten it just a little bit, and then I am going to tuck this fun birthday bow right to the side. And there you have it, a beautiful birthday arrangement in bright spring colors. Guys, thank you so much for being here with me this afternoon. I hope that you learned something from this tutorial. If you have any questions about anything in our flower shop, we're happy to answer any questions you might have. And be sure to subscribe to our channel if you haven't done that. And we come live every Tuesday and Thursday here on YouTube, so be sure to watch for those videos. Y'all have a great day.